Hello and welcome to a new episode of Photography Behind the Scenes. On this fine rainy day I was making my way to a lake where I wanted to go for a photography session. On my way I pulled over for a couple stops to photograph some of the landscapes through the wet window Todd Hido style. This is an alright first attempt that nicely captures the texture of the rain, but it's not yet quite what I was looking for. This here is what I was looking for. I want to credit Todd Hido for this technique that he masterfully used in his photo series Roaming. I love how the close distance to the water warps and blurs the landscape in a way that it gives the photograph a surreal and painterly abstraction. It's this wonderful balance between an image that tries to simply picture the scenery and a stylized photograph. In total, it results in an impression of the scenery, hence concentrating the focus of the viewer on the feeling the photograph evokes when viewing it. I really wanted to try out this technique myself, so more attempts are about to follow. This one also works well, but I think it's better when the camera is a bit closer to the water to get the warping effect, instead of the blurry yet recognizable raindrops in this photograph. I pulled over here again to get another shot. This one too is beautiful, I find. I'm fond of the extra layer the raindrops add, but I now would like to see it closer up for a stronger warp. Same here, the water texture is wonderful, but actually not what I was going for. I'll keep this technique in mind though, it's intriguing how big of a difference the distance makes. So, today is a rainy day, a long-awaited one. I've been waiting for a day like this for a while now because it hasn't been raining so much here in Austria, at least not for longer than 20 minutes. And today is finally a day that it's raining long enough. Wait a minute. No, it stopped raining! I can't hear any rain on the car anymore now. Okay, I think it might be starting again. I can hear some very quiet drops, and it's supposed to continue for the whole day according to the weather forecast, so I just hope that we won't lose the rain now. I'm out with the GX80 today, and I don't exactly have a plan, but a couple ideas of photos I'd like to do, and otherwise I just want to explore this area, because I've come to this place that I've never been to before, but I've found on Google Maps, and so I thought lakes are always a good place to go to shoot some photos, and so yeah, that's the plan, so let's go out. This photo is interesting in the way that I always find these side mirror photos interesting. The mirror creates a frame in the frame, which pulls a lot of the focus over the image on this small area where, in this case, I've placed the subject, the houses. However, the water effect sadly doesn't feel so present here. Probably I should finally get out of the car for once. So, I finally made it out of the car and to the lake, where I was intrigued by all the different grasses at the edge of the lake. I found it a bit difficult to find a proper composition here, but got a shot of something anyway. Here's the photo. I like the layers here, from the grass to the lake and then the reflection of the forest. However, I don't feel much in this photo, it seems to miss something. Next I got low with the camera to catch some grass in the foreground for a shot that was going to be a landscape of the lake. Here it is, and I like it. I think the composition worked out fine, however I'm not so fond of the flat light here, which makes this photo feel, well, flat. There's nothing with increased focus from the light at least, everything seems equal, which I suppose is not an issue, but in this case it leads to the photo not feeling so focused on anything. Next, I got a detail shot of the grass. This one is nice, but I think it would work much better in a series as a couple with one wider shot. I think it could be a great accompanying shot, but on its own it's maybe too detailed. This could be interesting. Here's the result. This one is cool, I find, with its branches in the foreground, adding a sense of depth to counteract the flatness of the light, which is the one thing that I'm missing here. Rainy days are of course mostly flat light days, which is what makes them challenging in that regard. I think it then comes down to finding the suitable subjects for the conditions, and in this example the subject is alright, but not exactly a great fit for interesting lighting. Next, I continued to walk around the lake and I found a bench. This shot is interesting in its own different way in comparison to the previous photos. What catches my eyes here is the clear separation in various elements and the way they are balanced. Basically, the composition consists of the grass, the lake, the bench plus that door, the tree on the left, and the forest at the right. I think the composition here is more about the relation between these elements than anything else. Thanks to the lake's edge flowing through the photo, everything feels connected. Ooh. Next, I got another detail shot of the grass with the water right behind it. Here's the result, and I like it, but I don't really think it's outstanding in any way. I appreciate the texture created by the light waves in the background. The photo keeps its focus on the grass, however, which works nicely, but I'm not sure whether the grass has enough to offer to actually be an interesting subject. Then I came onto this concrete platform here to get a closer look at the water. I got a simple black and white photograph of the waves, which I guess is a fairly conventional and often seen photo, but I like it anyway. I just love how the light interacts with the water. Then I got a bit low again to frame some long brown plants in the foreground with the lake in the background. Here's the result. I'm liking the dramatic green colours here that add an extra feeling of anticipation as if a storm is on its way. The plants are frozen without motion blur, but nevertheless do not feel still somehow, which is what gives the photo this pre-storm feeling, I think. So maybe this is an effective way of shooting that simple lake photo I got before but wasn't so satisfied with. In this version, the lake takes a back seat and lets the bush to be the focus, and the lake becomes an assisting character in the composition. This is such a stock photo. I'll take it anyway. Okay, so here is that stock photography-esque shot. I don't really like this one. I think the composition is fine actually, but I feel a discrepancy between the subject matter and the mood. I think this would be a wonderful shot at sunrise with a pink tint in the atmosphere, but on this grey day it doesn't fit together so well in a photograph. I continued my walk around the lake and got another detail shot of the lake shore grasses. Here's the shot. What I appreciated here was the way these little grass islands leaked into the lake. Additionally, the reflection of the forest on the other side adds an extra layer to the top, which I find balances out the composition. On this side of the lake, I found many more of those brown plants that rise up to a decent height for framing up with the lake in the background. Here's this version, and I think I prefer this one over the photo I got on the other side. The lake and the forest have a pleasing shape in the background here, and I appreciate how a lot of the brown plants peek into the composition at the bottom. Then, as I entered the forest, I got a couple detail shots of the tracks in the dirt. These turned out pretty boring, I find. At least they don't seem to intrigue me anymore. Then, around the corner here, I got a simple wide shot of this side of the lake. The photo is okay, but again has the same lighting problem that I've been facing with many of the wider shots on this day. Wow, these greens, so saturated here. Then I was on my way further into the forest and spotted an interesting composition on the left. The tracks that led back out to where I had come from looked like a nice frame for a photo that leads from the forest out onto the field. The result is alright, but it didn't really work as well as I was hoping it would. The scenery awaiting the viewer outside of the forest feels a bit underwhelming, seeing as it's just a field and a distant patch of trees. Then I wanted to get some photos of the beautiful forest here. Here's the result, and I like it. It's very simple, but I think I still like it simply because I find forests so mesmerizing. The photo shows the green and brown ground out of which numerous trees just emerge and rise high up, building this area of densely accumulated growth of trees that we call forests. It seems to me like a natural sign of power, as if nature is showing off here, like, look what I can make. And so the photograph, as simple as it may be, captures this display of natural power for me. I then walked into the forest to get some details of the moss at the bottom of the trees. Here's the first one. I love how the thick mossy roots of the tree entrench themselves into the ground. Here I got a slightly wider version with two trees in the composition, but essentially capturing the same thing. Oh, here's that second lake! Oh wow! Haha! That's amazing! From here, I enjoyed the scenery ahead and got a shot. This time I went for a black and white edit as an attempt to counteract the lighting issue, but I'm unsure if it really makes much of a difference. I do enjoy the framing though, with the forest leaning into the photograph from the right side. I wonder if I could change lens fast enough to catch that person. Oh, this has been open all the time. Oops. Wow, okay, that was a lot of consecutive minutes of concentration, but I think I got some cool, very minimal shots of that person with, I don't really know what she's got there with her, maybe two dogs. So, here are the results from this moment. I like the idea of the minimalistic composition, but I'm sadly not really fond of the results. I'm not sure why, but I think it comes down to the lighting again. For me, lighting has become an increasingly important part in photography, and this photo's lighting is simply flat, which isn't necessarily an issue, but in this particular case, I think it just feels boring. I like those clouds on the mountain. Then I made more use of the zoom capabilities of this lens and got a close-up of the mountain in the distance. This one turned out pretty nicely, I think. The light is not much different actually, however I think the cloud interacting with the silhouette of the mountain does look quite interesting. Then I tried to get another shot of the houses in the distance. This somehow looks better than the first attempt. I like the composition with the grass in the foreground. The light is just as flat as in the first photo, but for some reason here it doesn't seem so boring. I'm thinking that this might be thanks to the closer distance to the subject. The other photo was much wider, hence showing off more of the landscape, which might require a more interesting lighting situation than this kind of composition where the subjects can be looked at in further detail. Then I decided to walk back through the forest and return to a spot we passed where I still had a photo in mind that I wanted to get. Ooh, it sounds like a storm is coming. Not just a little bit of rain. Okay, so the weather is getting pretty wild now, but I really wanted to get this photo. This was like the one photo I was thinking of. Can you even hear me? Oh no! Oh, I gotta get out of this wind! Alright, I'll stop the time-lapse mode and let's see. So I'm basically looking at the time-lapse now. Oh, this is... oh, it's great! And wait, now I'm gonna get out the umbrella. Haha, yes! Okay, I haven't looked at it in detail, but the little snippets I just saw look pretty fun and cool. And yeah, I don't know, I think I'll just make my way back to the car now because actually the conditions are quite cool now, but I need to give Melly the car back soon, and also the conditions are getting a bit harsh. If it's going to get any windier, it's going to get hard to shoot. So that was a lot of fun. I've rarely shot on windy days, but I should definitely seek out more because wind adds such an interesting and dramatic atmosphere to the photos. I've chosen 3 photos I like, this first one being pretty dark and moody. I, of course, enjoy this combination of a small subject interacting with a landscape. The second photo is similar to that, but a bit brighter and with a different pose. I like the umbrella as an addition to the subject. And then lastly, I chose this black and white cropped version. What I like here is the added drama thanks to the light motion blur, which I assume simply occurred due to the strong wind. In combination with that unstable looking pose of mine, it has a uniquely new feeling in comparison to the previous 2 versions. So, as you can see, I've made it back into the car. I didn't really film anything then because the GoPro died about 10 seconds after I turned it on again to start filming, and also the condition was a bit too harsh to shoot because it was starting to get really wet. I'm soaked now, but also windy. As I wished for the rain to come back, I wasn't expecting that it would come back at this harshness, but I have to say I don't really mind it because now sitting in the car I'm staying all dry and warm, and I could try more of these Todd Hido style photos. So from here on, I spent my time sitting in the car shooting some photos out the window and then made my way back home with a couple of stops occasionally to get another shot. Here are the last results from the day. I really enjoy these last ones now that it got so wet and rainy again. This one stands out for me because it's this nice mixture of the warping effect and some water drops that are pretty recognizable. Anyway, that was the end of this rainy day of photography. I think it was wonderful to go out on a rainy day again, which I haven't done in a while. Interestingly, my favorite photos are mostly those that were before or after the actual photography destination, so the photos I got on the way or on the way back. I think this one might be my favorite of the day. Let me know which yours is. I'm so fond of this technique that I'm boldly copying from Todd Hido. Maybe by practicing it and trying out new things from here, I might be able to find my own twist on it. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, I'd appreciate a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and I'll see you again next week in the next video. Until then, goodbye.